Good morning, good afternoon. Give me a second here, bring my camera on. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Daily Cyber, episode number 283. Happy New Year. This is the first stream I'm doing this year. Getting back into the swing of things. Started a new brand. You're going to see a little bit of a design in the background. Really excited about getting Daily Cyber started this year because there's just so much to learn, so much going on with security, technology, things along that line that I'm trying to get as many subject matter experts out to have these deep conversations, to really learn about what's going on in the industry, what's going on with technology, what are things that we need to know as experts in the field, and then how do we apply that from day to day? Which brings me to the expert that I've got on today. His name's Robert, who is the architect of the Strategic Human Firewall, a trademarked methodology that moves beyond technical software to focus on behavioral governance. His approach addresses the human blind spot, a vulnerability where individuals are hardwired to trust digital senses, eyes, and ears, that AI now easily exploits to create perfect lives. Now, I want to add that into some context. We're seeing more and more how AI has evolved from the phishing campaigns and things that you'd see, and you look for spelling mistakes, things along that line. Completely evolved. And that's why I wanted to bring Robert in, because grounded in the reality of that, all security is personal. Robert teaches that protecting company data is most achievable when individuals first learn to defend their personal lives and families. By translating personal safety instincts into corporate habits, he powers millions to protect their data, privacy, and wealth from modern digital Frankenstein. So this is where we're getting to, like the day and age of Skynet, Frankenstein. You'll see all these different quotes that people are coming up, but it's really exciting to have these conversations. So grab a coffee, grab a tea, and let's hack at it. Welcome, Robert. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you. Really appreciate being here.
Oh, just excited to have you on. I know there's a lot we want to cover. How's your week been? How things going?
It's 2 feet of snow in the Boston area. So yeah, good.
Same here where I'm in Toronto, Ontario, and getting the same thing. I have a little Bernedoodle. She's behind me, and she's only like 17 pounds, very small. Well, she tried to go out to the bathroom and she just sunk into the snow and couldn't see her.
Yeah, my dog loves the snow. So fun.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. So I really want to jump into this because I know one of the biggest concerns we see this day in and day about phishing campaigns and social engineering and things along that line. And I know one of the areas that you have been talking about, you got me interested, is the human blind spot. All right. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. So, we're just people, right? We have this biology that kind of prevents most of us from engaging in effective risk management. And of course, as AI driven social engineering bypasses, technical perimeters, training, security awareness training has become, an extremely critical defense. But the way in which it's being implemented, I think that more can be done, like basic phishing simulation training and compliance, check the box is good, but I don't know it's enough due to the fact that what I call the human blind spot, right? It is that psychological instinct to trust the familiar. I think that we must transform ourselves and our employees into what we call, the strategic human firewall. It's taking it up a level to where the employee understands and recognizing risk, that psychological instinct to trust the familiar. It's that cognitive gap where biological trust overrides digital suspicion. And we're not good at that on our own. Okay. That leaves the door open for all kinds of fraud and, of course, AI enhanced deception.
So I want to ask you that because I know there's probably people watching this and they're going to go, okay, what do you mean? Hold on. I'm good on that. Like I attend the training. I've gone through the phishing campaigns monthly. I've done the cybersecurity training. Like, what do you mean? What am I missing? What am I needing to look for?
So it actually goes back a little bit more than that. So,
Yeah.
like most people that feel confident that they're really good at paying attention to all this stuff, that's actually amazing. Like that's really good.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt that they actually are good at that. Like I know that I am. I know that I have a clue. I know that like when I, access the telephone and the email and I get inbound communications coming in and I'm looking at videos online and I'm determining like, is that real? That's fake. Honestly, I can't tell if the video is real or if the video is fake just by looking at it. Most of the time you can't tell,
Right.
Nowadays the technology for AI deepfake it's perfect. Like it's, I mean, maybe 6 months ago you could kind of tell the face might be contorted a certain way and the eyes weren't quite matching up with the smile and so forth. But now deepfakes are perfect. Voice cloning, I know that I can't tell. Right? Like there's no way that I could figure out real versus fake voice. Like it's perfect,
Right.
But like there's more to it. And the more to it part like comes from like we as humans, we don't engage with risk management all that effective due to the fact that like it's not inherent with us. Like we're not like we have like what I call like a security aversion,
Okay.
It's that natural resistance to security protocols because they feel uncomfortable. Sometimes they are fear-based or intrusive. Like those who feel good about it, great. But there are way more that don't. And that's really the gap that I see needs closing.
Well, I think there's two things that I see. It's restrictive, right? And then it's complex, right? It's restricted because now I can't do this. I'm not allowed. These are things I have to do. And then it's complexive. And it's kind of funny. I was having this conversation with someone that today was, oh, now we want to get password managers. And now I have to go into that and log in. And then I have to get my password. And then it has to go into this application. And then I have to go back. And then now I have to do two-factor authentication. Why can't I just log in? Why can't I just do this one thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I get that, and the workarounds and employees, the insider, sometimes they're the biggest threat, not because they're malicious, but because they make mistakes, because they engage in workarounds. But I think that if they had a better understanding of the various risks, I think that they'd be maybe even more effective, even in the workarounds. And when I say that, I mean, like maybe they wouldn't make the mistakes during those workarounds. So like let me back up a little bit. Right. So, we, with the human blind spot, right? We trust by default.
Right.
And what that means is like, as an interdependent species, we are dependent upon each other for our survival. So we need each other for procreation. And without that, obviously we would diminish as a species. That would be the end of it. Okay. And as a result of that interdependence, that means that we trust by default.
Right.
We need to trust each other. We give the benefit of the doubt all day, every day. That's what we do.
Right.
Phone calls, emails, text messages, throughout our lives, we want to trust people. And that makes us vulnerable.
Right.
Because the bad guys, they use truth. They use the truth against us. They use truthful scenarios that they twist up a little bit. They get our blood pressure up. And ultimately, like, we fall for these things because we think that we can't be scammed, some of us, or just, our emotions get in the way. Like that biological impulse, right? Versus that intellectual understanding. It's that internal conflict between our evolved survival instincts and our modern knowledge or lack of knowledge of digital risks.
Right. But I think also too, I mean, I would put in that 100%, we independent, interdependent, kind of working through the process of evolution, how we grow, right? We're extremely dependent as we grow up. Kid, you're asking for mom and dad for food, substance, shelter.
Yeah.
We come independent, right? In the sense of, as you're a teenager, I hate mom, I hate dad, I hate you. I'm going to do the things on my own.
Yeah.
Right. And then become interdependent as you become an adult, because you realize you have your kids of your own and go, now I know what you dealt with. Now I respect
play dates. Yeah.
I expect kind of what you go through. But I also think, I mean, in my opinion, I think there's other sides of fear-based too, right? Because they get them at the wrong time. They put pressure on them. They put fear-based in it. Like, your kid's in the hospital, you need to get this information. They've got 30 seconds before they're going to surgery, and they get you to the point where you're all heightened and you're not thinking, right? You're in an emotional state versus a logical state. So people make this poor decisions. here's my credit card, here's my information, here's this, and they get compromised, right? So I've seen that with the ACH transfers in organizations where you're 3 months in debt, you haven't paid, we're going to stop, our supply, you need to get this done as soon as possible. And they're like, oh my God, and they're freaking out. So then they change the account number. They do all this information instead of validating, hold on, let me phone you back. Let me kind of go through the due diligence.
Yeah. We call that like a wetware hack.
Right.
A wetware hack essentially is the human brain as biological hardware.
Right.
Criminals hack the wetware because it's often the path of least resistance, compared to software.
Right. The technology, the controls, because the controls are hard. Most of the times I'm going to say most of the times are hard to get around because they've been implemented in a mature way. So they have to chip away versus if I can social engineer an individual that's not paying attention, in a stress state, whatever that may be, it potentially will be a lot easier for me to do that. I mean, look at the casino that got hacked, right? They compromised the help desk by saying that they're one of the IT people.
Yeah. $30 million later.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Mm-hmm. Right. Things like that happen. And again, it wasn't a technology, it was an individual.
Uber employee back in 22, 23 receives a text message from who he thought was IT.
Right.
And they asked him for his password.
Right.
And as a result of that, what I read was they had like complete access to Uber's systems, a complete, to everything. Screenshots showed Slack servers, the whole thing.
Right.
And we say, well, okay, so was that employee stupid? Is he naive? Is he dumb? I don't know that he's any of those things. I think he's a good person, actually. I think that he's just like everybody else. He just wants to do his job.
Right.
He just wants to help. And that's most people. So I've been doing what I do for 30 plus years. And what I've determined after 30 years is 97% of all the people that we ever meet in the course of our life, 97% are essentially worthy of our trust. Mm-hmm. That they are the majority, that they are essentially good people with good intentions, right? They essentially don't mean to do harm. Okay. Right. And then about 2 to 3% of the world's population are what might be considered by the medical community as antisocial personality disorders, ASPD. Okay. They are the sociopaths and psychopaths, basically the narcissists amongst us that don't really have any empathy, sympathy, guilt, or remorse.
Right.
That we could consider them the predator versus we are the prey.
Right.
They're the wolf and we're the bunny rabbit.
Right.
And it's always been, is, and always will be like that. And I don't know that the 97% have any real understanding of that 3% and how they act and how they react and how they prey upon us or what their motivations are. I don't know that they look at that if they've actually focused on it, other than watching it on true crime and watching it in the movies, and what we do in response to recognizing whatever risk there might be is this other thing that we do, which is denial, right? So when I get in front of my audiences and I ask them, because I engage in a dialogue when I'm doing a program, and I ask them a number of qualifying questions, and I just kind of break them down a little bit to get where they're at, and I'm challenging their belief systems by asking all these various questions. And when I walk in the room, what I see is this. I see this.
Right.
I see everybody with their arms crossed and most of the men with the scowl looking at me what are you going to tell me, security guy? And I start asking them questions and those questions are so absolutely basic. So raise of hands, how many of you are using a different passcode across all your critical accounts? Raise your hand.
Right.
If I get 15% of the room, in every presentation that I do, if I get 15% of the room, that's a lot.
Right.
Which is 85% of the room is using the same passcode across multiple accounts.
Right.
And then the next question is, of course, how many of you are using two-factor authentication across all your critical accounts, including email?
Right.
If I get 20% of the room, it's usually a little bit higher, is a lot.
Right.
Which means in general, 80 to as much as 94% is actually the number.
Right.
Are vulnerable to a basic access control hack, a basic, password attack.
Right.
Which is really bad. And that's bad. I saw it very recently, and I've been saying this for decades, that it was CrowdStrike actually said it, George. He said something they're not hacking. They're just logging in.
Right.
And that's what they're doing. They're just logging in.
Right.
And the consumer, the employee, they get that to a degree, but they don't truly understand until you show them. And show them means like, there's been 175-ish records compromised like in the past 15, 20 years. Did I say 175 billion?
Okay. I was going to say 175 seems low.
Yeah. 175 billion.
Right.
And about 15 billion of those records are passwords.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Googleable thing, right? It's a searchable thing. And with all those passwords out there, like I've seen like about 94% are actually like, you can see people are reusing like the majority of their passwords,
right?
Kids' names, whatever. Right. And when they start to see that and they're like, oh, like that's kind of silly. That's kind of ridiculous. Like I've been going about this the whole time wrong. They start to like kind of relax a little bit. Okay. So what do I got to do here? Because now this is like real. And then I start asking them other questions like, and this is a simple one. Like, how many of you actually have a home security system?
Okay.
All right. And then when I ask that question, if I get 20% of the room to raise their hand,
right,
that's a lot, and then somebody chimes in, well, is a gun a home security system? And I'm like, okay, Elmer Fudd, right. like maybe, but not really, and then like I say, okay, so why don't you have a home security system? Kind of like,
mm-hmm.
not challenging them or anything, but just kind of asking inquisitively. And once they start answering, it becomes very evident where most of us are at. So the answers are like, for example, oh, we don't have a home security system because my husband says we have insurance. So why bother?
Right.
All right. Well, I don't know if that's like really well thought out, And then the other one is like, oh, we don't have a home security system because if they're going to break in, they're going to break in. Like there's really not much we can do.
Right.
Like that's a fatalist attitude. And in my mind, I'm like, I want to say to the husband, yeah, have you thought this through like at 3 a.m. when they come in with a knife or a gun and you and your wife are in bed? Okay, Elmer Fudd, are you going to be ready to go? You know what I mean? And then the most common answer that I get, and this is like across the board, it's everywhere, is we don't have a home security system because I don't want to live like that.
Right.
What do you think that means?
Right. Like you said, it's the 97% of the trust, right?
They say, I don't want to live like that, meaning I don't want to have to worry. I don't want to live in fear. I just want to be free.
Right.
That's what that really means. And that right there, truly what that is, that's denial.
Mm-hmm.
And we function as human beings in denial kind of all the time. Denial is like this psychological thing that's kind of like, it's like kind of like this barrier that's like this like protection barrier that prevents us from like fully recognizing threats and fully recognizing risk and fully recognizing anxiety. Mm-hmm. It allows us to like kind of relax in a world that's kind of, on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And that denial keeps us going. It keeps us kind of happy. It's like a barrier. But I don't know if that's any longer effective when it comes to security.
Well, I think it depends on the individual because exposure can be daunting for certain individuals. Yeah. Like you and I live in this industry, and there's things that, I mean, we can go down the rabbit hole, but things that we've been exposed to or seen that some average people, it's not part of their bandwidth to be able to handle these situations. Like stuff I've seen in incident response, stuff I've seen with working with the police, right? If I talk to the average person about it, it would overwhelm them. Right? They'd go into the primal instinct of fight, flight, or freeze. Right? They couldn't manage it because and this is my opinion, the average person's probably at 90% threshold of stress, work, money, finance, things like that. And if I said, hey, by the way, there's all these other things, there's another world going on underneath, it completely frees them up or put them in a fight or flight state. Like, and that's why I think, and I agree with you, I think that denial is so they don't have to be exposed to that.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the beauty of that. You see, I look at that as an opportunity, right? And that opportunity is like, so right now, most security awareness training is compliance-based phishing simulation,
right?
Which is entirely necessary. And for what it does, it's effective,
right?
It's got a good ROI, and it does move the needle when it comes to recognizing risk in regards to phishing. Right. And other aspects as well. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that is that that's all it does.
Right.
Often it's not delivered more than once or twice a year. And while, there's also micro e-learning, which is great, it doesn't really like address the individual where they are in their life.
Right.
And so all that overwhelm and worry and fear that you speak to, I have found can be alleviated. It can be put into a perspective. It can be essentially, quashed, right? By engaging the employee, the learner, where they're at in their lives right now.
Right.
Okay. And you do that by, starting off like this, but then as you ask them all these various questions and kind of engage them in regards to trust and denial and stuff like that, you start talking about them in their own worries and their own concerns and their own fears when it comes to their own security.
Right.
The way I see it, like all security is personal. And what that means is like security is personal to me. It's like, it's that core belief that people protect what they love.
Right.
That by teaching someone to secure, say, their child's digital footprint, right, you create a more secure employee at work because now it's about them. It's about their own identity, their home security. It's about their physical being. It's about having a conversation with their daughter who's going off to college. And, like as many as 1 out of 4 young women going off to college are sexually assaulted. Right. And that's an uncomfortable conversation that most people don't have or even know how to begin to have that conversation or want to have that conversation because they don't want to think that that's going to happen to their girl.
Right.
But I think it's a necessary conversation because it's a reality.
Right.
But we don't want to do that because we don't want to live like that. We don't want to live in fear.
Okay. So
which is kind of silly.
Then how would that relate? And then you're talking about personally and totally subscribe to it, but how would that relate to cybersecurity or IT security?
Yeah. So there's a gap, right? Yeah. There's a gap. So there's obviously security awareness and security awareness training, which is what, most of us do. And from my perspective, security awareness is in your head. It's an intellectual understanding of risk. I see all these risks based on what I've been told, and I understand all these solutions based on what I've been informed of, and therefore I am aware of the problems, and now I am aware of the solutions. Right. That's security awareness. Right. I look at that as head-based intellectual understanding of, it's
that can be compartmentalized. And then let me give you context. People who get assaulted, you talked about, women going to college, you take a self-defense course, you take a course on awareness, and you kind of do that. So it's more the physical aspect. But again, when you're looking at cybersecurity, one doesn't relate to the other because you're looking for the guy, his behavior, how he's standing, how he's looking, does he do that? Does his personality, behavior? But you can't see that when someone's socially engineering you. You can't see those different, I would call triggers or indicators that, oh, that guy's, kind of doing that. He's kind of shifty. He's doing that. I just don't feel right in his present because that's not coming across in IT security because it's an email, it's a phone call.
Yeah, but it actually does. Okay. So like just how the same way when you might be somebody's paying unwanted attention to you on the street.
Sure.
And you get an uncomfortable feeling.
Right.
Well, when an email comes in or a text message comes in, that's like, it might be threatening in nature in some ways, like it's threatening that you might lose your job if you don't respond properly, or that your loved one is at risk, or your account's going to be turned off. Like we all have like these senses that we engage in when something or someone is coming across to us, whether it's in person or virtual, that our bodies say, hey, I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but I feel like something is amiss here. Okay. And so like when you think about it, like cybersecurity itself has only been around for what, 20, 30 years? It's only been around for a blip in the course of our human history. It's a brand new thing. Right. And whereas personal security has been around for thousands of years. I mean, we were running from lions and bears 1,000 years ago, dinosaurs, whatever. I mean, you know what I mean, right? Yeah. Not necessarily, but yeah. And personal security is really no different. Like it's us up against the sociopaths and psychopaths, the predators, right? And so when you make security personal, when you make it about them in the physical world, and when you think about your identity, I mean, there's nothing more personal than your identity. right? In the US, it's of course the social security number. In Canada, it's a social insurance number. And our personal identifying information is us, it's our identity. And if that is at risk, like that right there it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you bridge that gap, I call this security appreciation,
Okay.
right? It is the shift from awareness, knowing, to appreciation, caring. Right. When employees, when we appreciate how security protects our own lives, I think that from what I've seen and experienced is that behavior changes permanently.
Right.
I call it the security appreciation gap. It's that chasm, right, between the employee's intellectual understanding of risk, again, awareness,
right,
to the emotional commitment to act on that knowledge, which is
okay,
appreciation.
right,
So it goes from like, this isn't just about, you know, my employer wanting to protect the data in which that I'm responsible for because I've got to take this compliance training. It becomes, hey, this training is more about me. It's about my identity. It's about my risk. It's about my family. It's about my bank account. It's about me. It's about my security. And now, like, it means something and it matters to me. And that gap is bridged when the employee feels heard.
right,
And when I say that, like, that might sound a little hokey to some people, but like, most security awareness training today is you sit down in front of a device and you consume.
right.
You're being essentially talked at and told.
Mm-hmm.
It's a talking head. It's an animation. It's a cartoon, whatever it might be. It might be interactive, and that's all good. It's necessary, and much of it is actually like good. You know, it's effective. It's got an ROI. But I don't know if it necessarily like engages the user. I mean, I've done it enough times that I know, like, you know, you just kind of want to click through and get through and not necessarily like finish it the way that it wants to be finished. That you try to beat the LMS. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that is basically a monologue. You're being talked at. Well, a dialogue is when you're having a conversation. And I think that most learning occurs when we're actually engaged in a dialogue. And that's how you bridge that gap. And that's how employees begin to understand that, okay, this is about me. This is about my security. This is about how I protect myself and my family. And so once they engage in that process and understand how that works for them, now they begin to like put their arms down and they lean in and they're like, all right, yeah, okay, so now what do I got to do? Because this is making a lot more sense to me now.
Right. And I get that. And I think you're getting, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, you're getting the actual audience more engaged into how to apply this. Versus a lot of times the training is corporate training. It's about how to protect the business, how to protect the organization, how to protect your email, how to protect your clients and vendors, partners. And it's all external. It's all everyone else except me. Like, we're not talking to the individual. We're talking about everything else around them.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, like, I'm not asking for the CISO to, you know, go out there and just start hugging their employees and stuff and, you know, saying nice and kind things in that regard. I'm asking them to like just be a little more understanding that like these people don't quite know what to do. Like, in every single presentation that I do, everyone in front of every audience, somebody always raises their hand and said, okay, so when I'm searching on Google, how do I know what link to click?
Right.
You know, like, it's 2026. How do you not know what link to click? And the reason why you don't know is because nobody ever really told you. And the fact that like these big, massive companies that are providing all these security awareness trainings haven't told anybody that in the training is astonishing to me.
And I think depends on the training. Like I seen some where they go through identifying URLs. And you and I know, like, there's some that are strings of characters, right? I mean, you got like google.com / and then it's just a massive string of characters. And I always get questions like around that. And like, okay, like, how do I know? Right. And then like there's tools, you know, where does link go? You can kind of copy that in and paste it and see if it actually is malicious or suspicious. But the average user won't know that, won't know to do that, to take that next step, versus they're just going to click on it. Because again, is there any, you know, link jacking, things along that line? They're not gonna know that unless they take that link out and copy it somewhere and are able to read it, right? Understand it.
Yeah. So if I was to ever like provide any type of an explanation such as you just did, which I perfectly understand,
Mhm.
they would be like, all right, you know, they don't know what to do.
Right.
So my response is, listen, Google is a for-profit business, and like they want to serve you up results based on what you're seeking out.
Mhm.
Meaning that, like, yeah, there is this thing called, black hat SEO or poisoning and such. But like the likelihood of that happening to you on the first page of search, unless of course, and I say, unless of course you're like engaged in search queries like Britney Spears naked pictures. Well, I can't guarantee that on the first page of search, you're not going to land somewhere, nefarious, right?
Right.
Because that's just the way it is. But if you're searching like, credit freeze TransUnion on the first page of search, it's highly unlikely that you're going to end up with results that are going to infect your device.
Right.
And then I say, like, in as long as your device is relatively, 3 to 5 years old at the most,
Mhm.
where you're running antivirus, anti-spyware, anti-phishing firewall, like a full suite of, security products. You've updated your operating system, you've updated your browser, you've done all the necessary things to keep your hardware and your software up to date to combat current threats. You're going to be fine. So
Right.
no matter what link you click on, you should be good. Is what I just said 100%? Of course not.
Mhm.
But it's what they're capable of understanding and consuming, so they're not overwhelmed by it,
Right.
so that they can function online. Because what we can't do is we can't overwhelm them because they're already overwhelmed.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know?
totally agree. I mean, I think my main question to yourself is, okay, so then how do we train these people? Like, what you talk about a lot of the behavior analysis and kind of the understanding of the stresses and making it more focused on the individual. Totally subscribe to it. But like, what's our process to go through that? Because know before, proof point, they're not doing that. Again, it's more corporate training for the organization, right? And then they have videos and phishing campaigns that are customized for the company, right? To make sure that the organization is protecting themselves from any type of compromise.
Yeah. Well, so we kind of got to like reframe this a little bit, because
Mhm.
I don't know that we can keep going at the rate that we have with the type of training that we've been doing and that be 100% sustainable. I call it the compliance trap, that false sense of security felt by meeting, regulatory requirements while the actual human behavior remains unchanged and vulnerable,
Right.
which it still is. What links do I click on in Google means that they're still vulnerable.
Mhm.
Most people haven't engaged in the States. We have what's called the credit freeze,
Right.
which is a tool that the credit bureaus offer to freeze your credit so that nobody can open up new lines of credit under your name.
Right.
It's not identity theft protection, but it is a form of locking down your credit report so the lender can't see your scores, which should be across the board in both the US and Canada, and it's not.
Right.
It's elective in the US, and I don't even think you can get one other than in Quebec in Canada,
Right.
which means, like, legislature isn't even seeing the value of such a simple tool, and they should make it across the whole country, not just in one province,
Mhm.
and so by addressing the individual where they're at, what their cares are, what their concerns are, you're engaging in a process that gets them to effectively care about security in a way that it just goes way beyond that compliance trap. You're not just feeding them information in order to solve the problem of compliance.
Mhm.
You're actually like empowering them to engage in a process that like protects them, and it protects their identity and their bank accounts and their credit cards and their devices and their data and their dollars and their kids and their spouse and their future, you
Right.
know, to allow them to sleep a little bit better. And none of that has to be difficult. It is essentially an addendum, an addition to what you're already doing.
Right.
When prior to COVID, for example, I was on the road. I'm a 1.5 miler on Delta Diamond. Like, just they sent me purple socks and luggage,
Right.
like to show that they're thank you for your allegiance or whatever, loyalty. Um, Prior to COVID, I was on the road constantly.
Right.
COVID hit, flatline, nothing. Like, phone wasn't ringing.
Right.
of course, I got to pivot and whatever I got to do to feed the family. And I made it happen, but that meant, lots of virtual stuff, which is fine. Plenty of virtual stuff. So I survived. That said, 2023 and a half, like 6 months in, phone starts ringing, emails start coming in. And what I'm hearing is from the CISOs and such is like, listen, we've been doing the phishing simulation training thing for as long as, and it does what it's supposed to do. However, the gap that we're experiencing right now is what we're trying to accomplish is we just want our people to care about security. That's all we want. Just make them care. How do we do that?
Right.
And well, that begins with a dialogue. Have you ever really asked them what their concerns are? Have you ever actually sat down and found out like what it is that they worry about in regards to security? Have you ever actually like I know that like most parents, they worry about their kids and their digital devices and what they're doing online and what they have access to and who's bullying them and what kind of trouble they can get into and how it's affecting their well-being. And it's like, well, why aren't you having conversations about that?
Right.
Because while that may not be cybersecurity, it's what they're concerned about. And like an employee that has concerns that aren't addressed in regards to digital literacy also means that they have concerns that aren't addressed regarding cybersecurity.
Right.
And I think that that's a conversation that's relatively easy to have if you make the time, put the energy and effort forth to make that happen.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, how would organizations do that? So, I mean, in theory, go talk to your employees. But if you have 1,000 employees, 2,000 employees, how do you apply that?
Yeah. So, look, there's all hands on type meetings in most organizations at some given point in time. That's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
I've done a presentation where I was in an auditorium at the actual company. They had like this beautiful room, and I'm on a camera, and there's probably like 200 people in the room, maybe less, right? And so they're engaged. We're talking, we're having conversations. They're raising their hand. I'm asking them questions. They're asking me questions. It's fully mic'd, and it's being broadcast to 4,000 people globally.
Right.
It was great, and the whole thing was available, on video afterwards, right? So 4,000 people globally and 200 people locally are able to actually like engage in a conversation about them and their worries and their fears and their concerns. And in that dialogue, like with even 4,000 people, I was fielding questions from those virtually in I think 30 countries. Like that right there. Most companies have some level of access to that type of technology, Zoom for that matter.
Right.
And it's just a matter of making it happen. Look, I understand that your CIOs and CTOs and CISOs, that they are, herding cats. They are not afforded the budgets that they need. They're not as appreciated as they should be. I look at these tech heroes the same way I look at, teachers, nurses, firefighters, and police. Like they are the unsung heroes. Like they are the reason why you and I, right? Why you for that matter, have the lives that we enjoy, because we've got electricity, which means we have heat and hot water. We've got clean water. We've got refrigeration and gasoline to power up the trucks to get us food from all over the world. Like none of that is possible without your CISOs and CTOs and CIOs. Like none of that's possible. Mm-hmm. The good guys, people ask me all the time, who's winning this battle? Right. The good guys or the bad guys? Well, obviously the good guys are winning, obviously, because if the good guys weren't winning, I'll ask you, if the good guys weren't winning, what would things look like right now?
Well, I mean, that as well as I do. The infrastructure would be completely shut down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's things that, and that's where I'm saying, like, kind of going down that rabbit hole. Like, you look at healthcare, you look at the financial market, you look at all that. Like, if we weren't helping to secure the environment, like our main infrastructure, power, water, healthcare, like all would be down.
we'd be in the dock. It'd be 1889. Like, you know, we'd be looking for whale oil to heat our house. You know, like we'd be in the dock. That's what they want, right? But the good guys are in fact winning because of the select few.
Right. Those
select few know that they have a significant challenge ahead of them. And with, you know, AI kicking in, that's a significant concern for mine. I have been doing what I do for 30 plus years. And in 30 years, I've said at every single presentation, and I still do, I say to my audience, like, listen, don't worry about any of this stuff. Like literally do not worry. That does not help you. It's not productive. Don't worry about this stuff. And mind you, like nothing that I do is like fear-based worry, do this or else. Like I don't do any of that. I talk to my audiences the same way I talk to my girls. You know, it's about empowerment. It's about options. It's about recognizing and understanding risk. It's about understanding how and why they react to how and why, you know, bad guys do what they do and so forth. Right. And so in that entire dialogue, I say, you know, don't worry about any of this. Just do something about it. Just put these systems in place. And generally what happens is you become a tougher target. That said, I am worried now.
Right. Okay. So is it the AI?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about that.
Well, I mean, you know, so like pig butchering, you familiar?
Pig butchering?
Pig butchering. Yeah.
I'm familiar with pig butchering. Yes. We have a slaughterhouse around me.
Okay. All right. Well, so pig butchering, if for those of you who are the uninitiated, essentially is a scam where the bad guys fatten up the pig.
Okay.
And the pig is the human. Okay. So pig butchering, like, is the place down the street. They fatten up the pig over time, feed it. And then eventually fatten it up to the point where, you know, it weighs a certain amount and then they slaughter it and they sell off the parts.
Right.
Okay. Well, pig butchering is a scam that's happening. It's been happening for the past probably 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And it involves finding the victims generally through email, phone, and text.
Okay.
So you know those wrong number text messages that we get?
Yeah.
That's the beginning of pig butchering in most cases. So you get that text message. Hey, Robert, are we meeting tomorrow for lunch?
Right.
And you're like, I'm sorry, who's this? Because it's a number that you don't recognize. It doesn't show up in caller ID other than the actual number. And you're like, I'm sorry, who's this? And she responds with her photo of Gloria, who's beautiful, like a Russian model. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, Gloria. You know, this is Robert. I think you might have the wrong number. And she's like, oh, Robert, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm sorry. I thought I was texting a buddy of mine or whatever. And now she's like, so where are you, Robert? And the dialogue begins.
Right.
And what happens is every day from that point on, if Robert is such that, you know, he's interested in what Gloria has to say, because either he's single or he's lonely, or frankly, he might be unhappy in his marriage.
Sure.
It's normal, right?
Right.
And so now Robert is communicating with Gloria. Gloria, when Robert wakes up, Gloria is right there. Gloria is like, hey, Robert, how'd you sleep last night?
Right.
And Robert's like, oh, I slept pretty good, you know. And then she's like, so what do you get going on today? Are you working today? And then the dialogue goes back and forth. And then she's like, so I'm meeting with my girlfriend this morning. We're going to have lunch. And then later on, I'm going grocery shopping. And then I'm going to have yoga this afternoon. I really hope we have an opportunity to connect today, is what she says. And Robert's like, hey, yeah, you know, I would love that, right? And that goes on day after day after day. Good night, dear. I hope you sleep well.
Right.
And you're getting photos of Gloria's like grocery cart.
Right.
She's just showing you pictures of what she's eating and what she's buying at the grocery store. What is that all about? It's just normal. It's just to show you that Gloria is just like this normal human being that has girlfriends and she eats food that I like too. And she goes to dinner. And it's interesting because I engage in all these wrong number text messages. And every single photo that they send across is like, it's all like a big steak and vegetables and a potato. Like every single meal that they send across is like steak and potatoes and vegetables, as if like that's what we eat 3 meals a day.
Right.
It's just so funny to me. And so this rapport that they're developing with Robert causes Robert to drop his guard.
Right.
It causes Robert to begin to focus on Gloria day and night.
Right.
Because Gloria has orchestrated that process because she's communicating. She's outwardly reaching out to Robert 6, 8, 10 times a day.
Right.
And then after a week is what I've found overall, a week, Gloria says, hey, let's get on a WhatsApp together. Let's get to know each other. Like, I want to meet you. I want to do a video on WhatsApp with you.
Right.
And you're like, really? Like, you want to do a WhatsApp with me? Like, you don't want to just like hide out in the dark wherever you are in the world. You actually want to like go face to face with me.
Right.
And that's what I do. And here's what I've learned, that every single one of these scams, that they adopt a face overlay. So it's an actual human that I'm talking to,
right,
with a face overlay. It's not a Russian model, but it looks just like the Russian model.
Okay.
And sometimes they do a voice clone, but sometimes they don't. So sometimes I'm looking at a Russian model, but I am hearing the voice of a young Asian female from Myanmar or Thailand.
Right.
And you know what that sounds like.
Yeah.
And that girl that I'm talking to, that woman, she's a victim of human trafficking, not for like sex or anything. The UN has determined that like somewhere around 300,000 men and women globally are engaged in human trafficking, like they're victims of human trafficking, specifically and solely to commit cybercrime.
Okay.
That they're in compounds, like in Southeast Asia, in Myanmar, that are 85, 100 acres with barbed wire fence and housing and food and technology. And they're working 18 hours a day, slave labor, held against their wills, and beaten and tortured if they don't, make their quotas.
Right.
That's who I'm communicating on WhatsApp with.
Right.
And never do I like scam bait them. I'm not interested in like tripping them up. Generally, like I'm just interested in learning more about what they have going on and just want to understand their process. And what usually happens is because to scam bait them would get them in trouble. And I don't want to do that. Like, that's not my motivation at all. And when I go down these rabbit holes with them, what usually happens is after like 2 weeks, because after we've done video, now the trust is cemented. And then that's when they start to bring up, so, I understand that like you work really hard every day, because, usually like when they ask me what I do for a living, I tell them I'm a roofer.
Right.
And I've got like a bunch of employees that work for me. And, that dialogue back and forth with me and the scammer requires a lot of creativity and a lot of lying, basically, a lot of storytelling.
Right.
And that's what I do. And so after a couple of weeks, she says, hey, Robert, I've been making a killing in crypto.
Right.
And she shows me like screenshots of like how much money she's making. Usually it's like somewhere between, 20 and 80% on her investment.
Right.
And she's like, if you're interested, I could show you how to do that anytime you want.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting to me. And she's like, do you engage in any investments? And I'll be like, oh yeah, I dabble here and there. I have a financial advisor and he does this. And she's like, well, do you do crypto? And I'm like, well, I thought about it, but I don't really do it because I don't quite understand it. She's like, well, that's perfect. I'm just kind of like facilitating, the dialogue to facilitate like, the end game. And immediately she's like, listen, whenever you're ready, I can show you, and within a day or two, I'm like, hey, I'm interested in that crypto thing. She's like, great, let me show you how to do it.
Right.
And then what they do is they start to send screenshots of all the different apps she wants me to download. She's like, tell me when you're ready and download these apps and we'll sit down and do it together.
Right.
And so she sends me the screenshots of the apps to download. And then it's screenshot by screenshot by screenshot. She's circling things. She's pointing arrows to things. Do this, fill this out, mark this, press that button, connect this account, connect that account until it gets to the point where like I'm connected to my bank account. I'm connected to credit cards accounts. I've got a crypto.com or a Coinbase account set up and she can manage it.
Right.
If that's what I want to do.
Right.
That right there, that the target of that scam, first of all, is everybody. But the big target of that scam is your mom. It's your dad. It's the baby boomers. So what most don't quite know about what's going on right now, there is a $124 trillion transfer of wealth.
Mhm.
$124 trillion transfer of wealth between the baby boomers and what is called the greatest generation, which is like their parents.
Right.
Okay. And that $124 trillion transfer of wealth is like their money that they worked for their entire adult lives, compounded interest, they paid off their mortgages, they invested Roth IRA, they engaged in, their pension and their annuity,
Mhm.
and essentially they're debt free, many of them, $124 trillion worth. And when they perish, which is going to happen, that money goes to me
Right.
and you
Right.
and my kids, 15 to 20 years to be dispersed.
Right.
About 20 plus trillion of that money is going to go to charity. About 100 plus trillion is going to go to the kids, that transfer of wealth. That is the target
Right.
of these organized criminals right now. That's the target of the pig butchering. And I have met the victims. I've come face to face, eyeball to eyeball, hugged, cried with them.
Right.
So I've been hired by wealth managers to like go speak to their people, to do a presentation, like to boots on the ground, get in front of my audience, like tell them what's going on, like make them understand is what the wealth manager says, because they're just like the literal definition of sitting ducks.
Right.
And they don't know what to do because they keep calling him every time something happens. And he's like, stop clicking links,
Right.
stop responding to those text messages, stop responding when you get the wrong number. Let's hang up the phone. Like
Right.
he has to he's like, they're overwhelmed because financial security means a lot more than, growing my money in my investments. It means protecting my money.
Right.
But a lot too often, the financial advisor calls me and says, listen, I got clients that just lost $600,000 in a pig butchering scam.
Right.
And, I get hired, I go down there, I speak in front of 1,000 people over the course of 2 or 3 days. And they come up to me afterwards. They're like, I think one of the reasons why you're here is because of me, because me and my wife, we got scammed in a pig butchering scam. And they refinanced their house. They invested every single dime they had into what they thought was a legitimate investment. It started off with like investing $1,000 that immediately turned into $1,500 within a few days. And they're like, can I take the money out and just take the 500? They're like, yeah, go right ahead. It is no different than a high-tech Ponzi scheme.
Right.
At the beginning, you could take the money out, and as it grows, you like have no reason to take the money out. So it kept growing, and he kept dropping like 5 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, 20 grand turns into 30 grand, and so on.
Right.
After about 3.5 months, they refinanced the house, right? They dumped a ton of money into crypto, or what they thought was 600 grand. And last I heard, the husband, I think, was on suicide watch,
Wow.
And when I met the couple, like beautiful couple, like physically, like just good looking people, like fit, in their like mid to late 70s. And I look at the wife, and I could tell like she was just broken,
Right.
And that right there is like where it's all going. Because that's where the big money is. I'm sure you heard of like in Hong Kong, the employee, I think it was a CFO, who was on a Zoom call with a half a dozen coworkers and transferred $25 million out of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like that's the boilerplate. That's the template.
Wasn't that a deep fake?
It was all deep fakes.
Yeah.
Everybody that he was on the Zoom with was a deep fake.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody. And so that's where we're at. That's where we've been. That's where we are. That's where we're going. And most employees don't know what link to click on Google.
Mm-hmm.
It's dire, but at the same time, it's fixable.
Right.
It's fixable if we engage the employee where they're at in their lives, and we explain this whole thing. We lay it all out for them. I don't know that there's ever been a better time to do that, actually, because cybersecurity itself with AI and what it's capable of, frankly, personally, professionally, it's exciting again.
Right.
It's not just data breaches. It's like James Bond Mission Impossible stuff. You know, it's like Tom Cruise ripping off that mask stuff.
Right.
It's like, how'd they do that? Like, it's really exciting now. And I
Right.
think that that's a great time to reinvigorate the security awareness conversation and engage the employee in such a way where, hey, like, we got some stuff to show you. Like, this is really interesting. And I think they're going to be like captivated by that, making it about them, going back to like the basics. And I think that like this is a perfect time to capture their attention and actually change behavior.
No, true. Now we got 5 minutes left. Anything you wanted to add for people watching this?
Well, listen, you know, like, to all you, you know, superheroes, CISOs and CTOs and CIOs out there, you got this. I mean, this is doable, you know. You know what you're doing. And to everybody else, listen, you should kind of worry about these things and you should engage. You should be consuming information like what we're doing today as often as possible. You know, don't worry about these things. Definitely do something about it. Engage in the basics. I'm telling you, and even as a CISO, if you don't have a home security system, don't get mad at me for saying this. I don't find you to be congruent. Frankly, no offense, but like, to walk the walk and talk the talk, I think that security needs to be something that's like in your DNA. You got to believe in it.
Right.
I believe in it. And I think that everybody who's responsible for it should truly believe in it. Not necessarily just, you know, 8 to 10 hours a day, but 24/7, 365. It's got to be like a lifestyle thing.
Right.
My wife, we sit down to dinner with people and she looks at me, you know, half an hour in, and she stops me and she taps my shoulder. She's like, are you going to talk about this stuff all night long? Do you really think that they want to hear about that all night long? And I'm like, she asked me about it. I'm telling her because she asked me about it. You know, like, it's got to be, you've got to like want this.
Right. So now the best way to get a hold of you, I got your LinkedIn URL here. So if people are watching this and want to connect with Robert, write this down, go and connect with him. And then Robert, your website, I'm just going to bring it up here, is protectnowllc.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, man, you are a gentleman. I appreciate you.
Well, this is great. I mean, I think the one aspect, you know, I take away from this is the human element. And, you know, a lot of times we get into the tools, the technology, things along that line, and we download a lot of this information, corporate strategy and compliance and training and phishing campaigns, all that. But like you said, and I agree with you, you got to look at the human element. You got to look at the individual that's taking the course, is taking the program. How are they consuming? How are they, you know, incorporating this? So this has been great.
Yeah, the strategic human firewall, it is a methodology that moves beyond technical software to secure the human layer, transferring your peeps into an active defensive perimeter.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Brandon.
So awesome, everyone. That was a great daily cyber comeback, start hard for the new year. Again, looking at the human element. I know we see these, you know, statistics and all that about the individual, that person, they're the biggest threat, you know, in the organization. But I think what Robert's talking about is spending more time, getting more engaged with them to understand where they're coming from, understand how they relate to cybersecurity and security as a holistic safety, their personal, their corporate, like all that right across the board, and really take that and have those hard conversations. Right. And like Robert said, depending on the size of your organization, I mean, you can do it as a lunch and learn, you can do it as an all hands. Right. But I think it's essential to have those conversations and look at, and some I'm going to take away from this is look at the statistics that you have in your training. Go back and see. Maybe you have some people who are not doing well in the training and not scoring. Maybe those are the people like Robert's talking about. You go have a conversation with, you go into more in depth, you go more personal. So I think overall, I mean, I learned a lot from this conversation. I learned a lot about, you know, how cybersecurity and training is evolving with the AI technology and how people are getting comrades. We're even talking about like, you know, slaughtering the pigs and things along that line. So, I mean, all these different things are takeaways that you guys should take away with you and look at how you're going to apply. So don't forget, software is hackable, being connected is vulnerable. I'll see you next Daily Cyber.